G'day and welcome to the Ball Boys AFL Fantasy Podcast. Today we are not live, but we are talking through our captains, trade targets, and answering your questions ahead of round 13. Let's go!
Just done it from nowhere. Pointed the goal from inside the 10. Shade from the boundary. Dusty. Petty. Petrarca. Oh, wow. How good is that? The legend becomes immortal.
G'day and welcome again to the Ball Boys AFL Fantasy Podcast. I'm your host, Mitch Casey, and you can find me on Twitter at Ball Boys Fantasy, joined as always by my good friend and co-host, Luke. How are you, mate?
Fucking deaf after that first take that you did. Screamed in my ear.
I'm excited, mate. We're recording
Yeah.
on a Thursday night. We actually have footy on tonight.
We do. Sorry that we're not live, guys. It's not Mitch, it's me.
Oh.
I
I'm the one that doesn't actually have a life on a Friday, Arvo.
got weekend commitments that I can't get out of, so my apologies.
Nah, it's all good. It's all good. It's our podcast. We'll do what we want, but we will answer all your questions because we sent a tweet out, so we will also hopefully get to a lot of your questions, guys. We are recording this right now. It is 7 o'clock, so the Thursday night game has yet to start. But
We're gonna wrap this one up quick, so we go.
yeah, we're gonna do a bit of a quick one. But obviously, it'll probably come out by the time that game is probably already finished. So obviously, maybe
Don't crucify us
some
for
of this
that.
information might look stupid by the end of the end of that game. So we'll see how it all ages by the time this podcast
I think we just
comes out.
avoid St Kilda Sydney.
It's an interesting experiment, actually. Like recording before the game, but let it come out after the game.
We
We'll
could
see.
either look like fucking geniuses or absolute losers, and I'm thinking it's the latter.
Yeah, well, especially when it comes to the big boys, which I have already tweeted out.
Okay, so
and
there's
as a
proof.
popular VC option there that we might not be going for. But let's start off maybe with the Thursday night teams that have dropped just over half an hour ago. Nothing too hectic from what I can tell for this one here. Just a couple of sort of few names that have sort of popped up. I guess the Angus Sheldrick in for tonight's game and Windhager in for the Saints as well. A couple of cheaper players have made or will be coming to the side there. The next game, Bulldogs and Port Adelaide, nothing really of note there, except I think Ollie Lord omitted. I don't know if many people would have him as a cheaper guy.
We didn't get any of those Weagles, those young Weagles in that we were hoping for.
We did get a Ryan Marrick. Is that how you pronounce his name? Ryan Marrick?
Would it be Marrick? Chesser there as an emergency. Does that help me?
Is he an emergency? Yeah.
He's
I
an
don't
emergency,
think
probably.
he's actually into the squad, which is a shame because they've made a bunch of changes and I was hoping he could just sneak his way in there a week before his bye, but no dice. Keating Coleman has been omitted, which I thought was interesting. Some people have been looking at him and also his teammate in Daniel Rich. I don't know if that positively affects him. I still am not enthusiastic about that move. Sicily is back in as well, and Bailey McDonald has been omitted for the Hawks. So McDonald was a cheaper rookie who was a late in last week when Seamus Mitchell, who was out sick.
Some people were floating him as a downgrade prospect, but
Obviously
not
can't go there
Not to
anymore.
be.
So he's probably another one. And then outside of that, it's the Sunday squads that we're kind of looking at.
Yeah.
The Mac, Cameron Fleeton is
Is he actually back in?
he's in the squad.
Oh well.
He's in the squad.
Mate, don't bloody go off early.
If there's a chance, but no, I don't think he's going to be in there, to be honest. But looking at that Sunday squad, and also another name in the squad for the North Melbourne Kangaroos, Blake Drury has put his hand up potentially to get back into that side.
It's not happening. Surely it's not happening.
Looking at the
Extended bench.
extended bench,
Nah, there's
Drury,
names.
Core. So you think
Zeebles
Core,
in it.
Zeeble.
Cunnington.
Well, Cunnington's not been in there.
Spicer. The
He's
Spice.
the Spice up,
Old
Paul
Spice.
Curtis. Look, he's probably not in there.
Yeah, he's not
It's a
making
fool's hope, but it's I don't know, maybe a hope if anything.
You reckon
And then
Fabian?
Lockie Cowan is also named in the squad for Carlton. So a
Okay.
lot of red dots becoming potentially purple dots this
just
week.
step by step.
It's hopefully a step in the right direction, but outside of that, nothing too hectic in terms of carnage. We don't have the Melbourne and Collingwood teams, and we won't have them until Sunday night, which is just rude,
Fucking sucks.
really. So
May as well not give them to us.
the guy who I think is the second most traded in player at the moment, Harvey Harrison, I just would have no confidence trading into a player like that at the moment.
You'd be pretty nervous, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Especially when you've got like the Eagles rookie there. You've got the other guy from Port, which I continue to forget his name, Josh Sin. I'd probably be going there instead.
Yeah, the thing too that I've heard, correct me if I'm wrong, is that some of those Collingwood injuries that we were kind of rattling off earlier in the week, they're actually
tests.
So and I think they're more likely to.
They've had a longer rest as well with their game being on a Monday, so
I wouldn't be pushing all my chips in on Shaggy.
They've got the week the bye the next week, so yeah, I just wouldn't be going Harvey Harrison personally as a downgrade. So, but Thursday night teams have been pretty kind to us, I think, on the whole. I don't think a lot of carnage teams would be having out there. So, yeah, let's move on maybe down to the trade targets.
Talk some targets, eh?
So, I think the hardest question this week is not necessarily who are we going up to, but who the fuck are we going down to?
that feels like it's been the question all year.
It honestly has. It has been sort of like the true test of how your team's going is how successful have your downgrades been.
Yep.
The number one downgrade target for me is head and shoulders above everyone else, in my opinion, and it is Matthew Johnson from Fremantle. I think that he is a guy who obviously is coming off a round 12 bye. He's a bit more expensive at $340K. But he's got, I think, about a 14 break even. And with Jaeger O'Meara out of the side suspended, at least for this week, I think he'll get at least a little bit of CBAs and midfield time. I think there's been a quote as well that they want to get him in the middle more.
Yep.
Before the bye, he was actually putting up any suspension. Remember, he was suspended a couple of games for that high tackle. He was actually putting together a few decent games. So I think that he is someone that I would be prioritising trying to get in this week as a guy who can cover you for the rest of the bye rounds.
He feels the safest of the trading targets. And I understand people's thinking because whenever you do your trades, you put that 200K rookie in just to see who you might be able to get.
Yeah.
But you've almost got to push that out of your mind, don't you?
I think so.
I can't just trade in that shit 200K rookie just to get to that guy that I really want to. You've got to be a little bit more creative. And people are showing that this week, I think, in the way they're generating cash.
I do think so. I think that, like, I sort of tweeted this out before. I think that there's some 200K rookies or some like cheaper rookies on the horizon. And the number two in the downgrade targets is one of those players in Ryan Marich, who for the Eagles now, it sucks because obviously he has his bye next week.
Yes.
So he's going to be a perfect player that if he's there in round 15, you trade into him then. Because I think being a part of the Eagles, number one pick in the mid-season draft, they're gonna at least give him some time in the back half of the season.
Did you see the tweet this week that the Eagles could field an on-field team with their injury list? They've got enough people injured to basically they've got.
We've got to do a little inquiry into their like rehab team or something like that. Not to call them out or anything, but
surely
like
they get the sack.
This has been a couple of years now, guys. I don't know what's going on there, but yeah,
poor bloody Eagles fans.
Poor Eagles and poor the Eagles fan base. It is tough to obviously go through that many injuries.
That means good news for some of these young fellas.
You would think so. So I think that's why he's at number two there for me, over some of those other guys like a Sheldrick, like a Harvey Harrison. Despite him having the bye next week, I think I'd hazard a guess that he will be there for round 15, unless he comes out and is just dreadful. Like if there is that chance,
you could stink it up.
But I think West Coast don't have too many other options, really.
That's it. The other thing to note, I think it's important to mention there, is with some of those other 200K rookies that you mentioned, guys like Sheldrick, I think even like Fahey's still 200K. When you go in and you have a look at their break even, because those two have break evens that are 60
70
plus, you don't need to trade them in this week.
You don't.
They're not. They need to get a couple of those good scores to get their money ticking over anyway. So if they do build some consistency and play in the team, you've got a couple of weeks to look at those guys. So definitely check that out in your trades. Have a look at the break evens of both your premiums you're trading in and as well as your rookies, because that can dictate where you go.
Yep. The third guy, and probably the only other guy that I'd be kind of half comfortable trading in this week as a downgrade rookie, is Josh Sin for Port Adelaide. He's held his spot over a couple of other bigger names getting dropped in Port, and there's been some positive comments coming out of the weekend. He's got the round 15 bye, so hopefully he can get a run of at least 2 games, make a little bit of cash, and if you desperately need him, maybe he goes down and you make 70K or something like that from him to, a Marich or something like that in a couple of weeks. But I hope I'm saying that name right. Is it Marich? I don't know. Someone correct me in the YouTube comments after this video goes up. But I still think that I'm trying to avoid these players as best I can, but he would be the only one that if you really, really wanted to get to the top end guys and you wanted a cheaper player, then he's a guy I'd be kind of okay with, as long as you don't need that player to be there around 15, which is going to be the tough round that we're all going to have to deal with. And then the fourth downgrade option, I've just written here, creative trading. Like we've been discussing over the last couple of weeks, all these different ways to get in cash. So whether it's a topped out mid price to someone cheaper on the way up, expensive rookie expensive player who's got a high break even, down to someone a bit cheaper coming up. Those are still some good ways to generate cash, I think, for this week, with the hopes that starting next week we can start to get on some of these cheaper rookies.
Yeah, there's definitely a few specific scenarios you might look at that kind of creative trading. If you don't own either one of English or Marshall, you could look to creatively trade your second ruckman down to Briggs, generate some cash.
I like that move.
Then also people over the last couple of weeks have been looking at sort of playing with Darcy Cameron. On that particular one, I'd hold off because he's going to have his bye next week.
Yeah.
And so you could trade him to after his bye. And the other thing with Cameron is he's not, unless he comes out and pops a 150, he's not really going to get away from you. I think he might only sort of go up another 15, 20K if he has like a 110. So, but yeah, there's ways to get creative for sure.
Absolutely. So, in my opinion, I don't think you can do Angus Sheldrick. I mean, by now the game, it's 7-10 right now, and it's locked out. And so if you've got him, you got him in your side. But hopefully, if you listen to this later, you didn't trade in Angus Sheldrick, because I think that...
No, he's going to go 120.
He's going to go big. But then I'll just get him next week. So that's the reason why I wouldn't go him. And then obviously Harvey Harrison, we're not going to know till Sunday. So I wouldn't be going either of those two this week.
Goulden's the leading scorer after 30 seconds. He's on for a huge one.
I
hope you all VC'd him.
Okay.
30 seconds in, 4 points.
Well, let's get to the big boys later on. My rank is probably plummeting right now after trading him out.
Loser.
So let's talk about some upgrade targets.
Let's do it.
Obviously, all of these guys, or most of these guys, are going to be coming off the round 12 bye. My number one premium target this week is, in fact, Lockie Neal. When I factor in price, matchup, concerns with health, run coming up, I think that he's just the best option for most teams.
So let's get straight into that discussion, because around that same price, I think like 20 or 30K more is Jack Steele, and there's been discussion. So people who are looking to trade in Neal, Steele could be in that category. So let's get straight into that discussion. Why would you go Neal over Steele this week?
Well, I would go Neal over Steele next week, because next week, when we're doing our upgrades for round 14, we're probably going to be trading a lot of the same players here again, because the only two teams that are going to join these guys are the Gold Coast Suns and the Geelong Cats. And like the whole season, we've been sort of saying there's not many enticing options on those teams anyway. Yeah. So chances are you're going to be looking at this same list of players. So for me, it's a case of getting another week to watch Jack Steele, getting Lockie Neal, who's got a Hawthorn matchup, who's been healthy all season. Yeah. He's in the role. He's sort of just getting used to working with Dunkley. So I can just get Neal this week, Steele next week. If I was, for whatever reason, if I say I wanted to target Noah Anderson next week, for example, and I wanted to choose between the two, then I might be more inclined to go Jack Steele. Yeah. I don't know how many people will be in that option, though.
You mentioned Steele's break-even as well,
so his break-even's 120, so he's not going to get away from his fact. He's probably going to at least be a similar price
and
next week.
It probably works in your favour there, because, like you said, of the two of them, he's the guy that's got the injury concern, so you get a week to watch him because he's got that high break even. The other thing too that
he's also playing now, so it's a moot point at the moment.
Sorry, we're discussing this, but you're already locked out. Well, the other thing that I feel like I can advocate for Neal as well is I think that like Neal's bottomed out in price. So if he kind of does what he continues to do, I don't think he's going to dive too much in price. And the good thing about that is, like, let's say you trade in Neal this week. He gets you through the next sort of 3 or 4 weeks, and it gets to luxury season, and you decide, I want to go to a guy who I now think he's got like a 120, 130 ceiling.
You can start to do that.
Exactly. Yeah. Like you can do that in luxury season. So I think you're getting off your mid-pricer and getting onto Neal now is a good idea. And I don't really see too much risk associated with it.
Yeah. Look, I don't think he's like a top 8 midfielder, but he's nearly there.
You didn't read that, did you? Did you read that?
I've lined that one up, mate.
That's your first one.
That's my alley-oop,
First one of the year. Well done. Welcome to the party, pal.
Let's go.
That was good. I wish I'd thought, you prick. I wish I'd thought it.
Anyway, my number 2...
we should get like a replay thing so people can watch that again. That was good. Nearly there. Good
my number 2 and 3 options are teammates here, and Andrew Brayshaw and Caleb Sarong. Andrew Brayshaw is expensive.
Oh, yeah.
But he is probably, of all these guys, the clear guy that's going to be the top 8 midfielder. He's probably a top 3 or 4 midfielder, in my opinion. He's priced at like 116. It's probably a little bit overs, but at this stage of the season, it's less of an issue for me. I still think, though, that for most teams and the way that this season has gone, that cash is going to be hard to get to. So I wouldn't be getting Brayshaw in if it like means you're having to get those really risky rookie types. I would be trying to go for someone cheaper and getting in a Matthew Johnson, getting in some of these guys that you feel more confident in. If you can do that and maybe you banked cash coming into this week and then get Brayshaw, then I tick it off. I think that's a good trade. But I wouldn't be bending your team and getting in shit rookies just to make that happen. If that is the difference between getting a Caleb Sarong or a Lockie Neal, then I go that way.
Yeah, and it might be the case where you just bide your time for a couple of weeks and then you make that upgrade. So I think that's a valid point there. What do you think about Caleb Sarong? Because he looks like he's going to be the guy that I trade in this week as well as Lockie Neal.
I mean, he's been great all season. Like he's been very, very consistent. He's been a guy.
You're paying top dollar for him, but would you agree with that?
I think you're kind of paying for what you're going to get.
Exactly. So,
I don't think it's overs, but I don't think it's value. But
does that go against our thing of chasing value, or do you think this time of the year it's like, okay, if I feel like he's going to be like close enough to a top 8 mid, just trade him in and just
Value is less and less important as the season goes on from here, and also when you've got a limited pool of premiums from like the round 12 bye. Like compared to the other options we have, he's not the worst in terms of value when you're looking at, look at some of these next guys we're going to talk about, like Sinclair and Jack Steele. Steele's obviously probably the most value on this list, then maybe Lockie Neal, but the rest are all kind of just you're paying for what you're going to get. Yeah. So a guy who's averaged 109 up to this point, I think he might be there or thereabouts. So I don't think it's that much of an issue for me.
Right. Is it even worth talking about Sinclair? It sucks that this week the 2 teams coming off the bye had the Thursday night.
Well, game. I can announce this. I'm training in Sinclair this week. I've gone Sheasel down to him to make a quick little 25k, and I'm expecting his. And without, you can look at the score and tell me he's on something shit, but I'm expecting him to actually probably have a poor game.
He's got the injury tag on him.
Oh, does he actually?
No.
Oh, yeah. Jesus.
There's a little shit on that shit.
Yeah,
Mitch just shat himself.
Yeah. I won't stand up.
Classic
but yeah, I'm expecting him to maybe not even have the best game this week. It's probably a trade that I am thinking more long term. Yep. I think he's probably in and around the top 6. And if I can make money on a Zeeble to him, fixes up my round 15 buy a little bit, and get that player in, then I'm happy to do so over someone like Jake Lloyd, who is probably also playing. Oh, he definitely is playing right now. So I think that's the reason I'm going that way.
Yeah, the thing too is like, close your eyes and throw a dart. Pick the last 2 top 6 defenders. You know what I mean? It's like we listed them on the podcast previously. So I like it as a trade because you think he's going to be there or thereabouts.
He's super unique as well, which can be double-edged sword, but high ceiling. He's scored 140s this year and did it again last year. I think also the Sydney tag, and again, it could look stupid after tonight, but the Sydney tag has been overblown. They haven't actually been tagging that much this year. Again, we'll see how it all wraps up.
We're talking about shit that doesn't matter to people by this point, but...
All right, discounted premiums, Hayden Young, Darcy Cameron. What are your thoughts on Hayden Young as a trade-in target, as a defender?
Look, take what I say, a little bit with a grain of salt because I'm so jaded by Hayden Young. But for me,
Mate, he's gone all right. He's outperformed what we paid for him at the start of the season.
But what's he priced at now? Because he's had like 5 or 6 good weeks at that. Question. So his price is now going to be up.
He's priced at 94.
Yeah, what do we think he's going to... I think he might
probably
average
94.
90. Yeah, do you know what I mean? So it's like... I think you can do something better with your trades, but he maybe falls into that same boat as Sinclair. But why would I go... I know people can't go Sinclair, but why would I go Sinclair over him? He's got a high ceiling, and I think he's going to average similar.
I would agree as well.
Don't go to Hayden Young, guys.
Yeah. Look, if you miss a Sinclair boat and you're making cash off Zeeble to him, I don't think it's the worst move. I obviously just prefer Sinclair, but that's a moot point now.
I'd rather go to this next guy if I was going to do something.
Darcy Cameron. I've put him in here because I do still think that there is a world where this could work. I personally just have not been entertaining for my team anyone that's not on the round 12 buy as like an upgrade.
Well, you might need to. So we're talking forwards and we're talking round 15 bye, and we're so heavy on it. Like the scenario where I can see this working is if you're so round 15 heavy still that you feel like you need to trade in Cameron this week and you need to feel like you trade in someone else next week to try and help that, then maybe that's just what you have to do. But I feel like by this point, most people would have sorted out that round 15 bye to kind of cover for it.
Maybe. I don't know. I think there's going to be carnage that round, very much so. I still think that, and this is why I was so big on him last week, is because we foresaw that coming.
Yeah.
And I think now, if you've got like a Sheasel or Zeeble thing, I'm more in the camp of waiting a week on a Sheasel, for example, trading him out at round 15, because you're going to get 2 games out of Sheasel. You're going to get 1 game out of Cameron between now and then.
Yeah.
Yeah, there might be a bit less of a cash difference, but I think the points are worth it at this point. But I could be wrong there. I mean, that's just what my gut feeling is.
Yeah. I'm
open to people disagreeing with that because I don't really know how to play this. It's a little bit different to things that I've seen in the past, especially with this round being so easy for people to get across. It's hard because I don't know how much we are going to actually even need a player like Cameron or a Sheasel or one of those sort of guys this week. So I don't really know where to go. What I've done in the past and what's worked for a lot of coaches in the past is getting those round 12 guys and waiting for after their buys. So that's just what I'm leaning on here. But there is a world where Darcy Cameron and a guy we'll talk about in a sec, Ben Keys, do work out.
The tough thing with Sheasel is, there's every chance Sheasel comes out in his next 2 weeks, he goes at 100. But the tough thing there is if he pulls out another 60 or a 60 and an 80 or something like that, you're no longer getting that 770 or whatever he's priced at now in your downgrade. You might be getting like 700 or 720 and then suddenly do your full 50k short of where you want to go with him after his buy. So it's with most things in fantasy, you go one way, it might work for you. Yeah. You go the other way, it might work. It's there's a luck involved too. So
we'll touch on real quickly a couple of 2 mid prices, Ben Keys and Nat Fife. Keys, I actually am more keen on a Ben Keys play than I am a Darcy Cameron play this week because of the fact that his break even is so low that you're kind of guaranteed to at a bare minimum make a bunch of cash.
Yeah.
And you've got the eject button next week. If it doesn't work out, if his role's completely different, you can trade him out. It's like a 1 week play. He's cheaper than a Darcy Cameron, not by much anymore, but it's like guaranteed cash generation. So this is kind of one of those things that I can fall into the bracket of like creative trading with like cash being the goal.
So these guys, Keys and Fife, I don't know if you said Fife's name before, but these guys fall into upgrade targets for you. So you'd only want to go here.
Not necessarily. Okay. I think these could be downgrade targets in terms of like we talked about before. Like if you're trying to generate cash, do another upgrade, like from another mid pricer. Say you've got some of the Suns boys, Rackins or a Fiorini, like going to a player like this, I think is a legitimate play and making money to get maybe it's the other one up to a premium. I think that those are definitely plays as well.
I want to talk with you just a little bit about Ben Keys because he's been doing my head in this week because there's a few things that I've talked to people about and I've seen, and I know when we went into the midfield for the Brisbane game, it was very much said we needed a bigger body in there to battle with the Brisbane midfielders. He was in there last week thinking, okay, slippery when wet up in Darwin, Keys contested ball winner.
Went at 30%, kicking 2 goals.
What if he's not in the midfield this week? This is the thing. It's like, and Adelaide fans that I've spoken to have said that they kind of preferred the look of Saligo and Rochelle and stuff going through there early in the year. If someone comes out tomorrow at Adelaide coaching staff and says Ben Keys will play in the midfield the rest of the year, then it's just like reverse your trades, get Ben Keys in. How much risk is associated with the fact that he could be moved out of the midfield? Is there risk there, or you don't see that?
There is risk there. There's definitely risk there.
Is it the kind of risk
like I just said, he went 30%, kicked 2 goals. Like, I don't care how slippery the ball is. Like, that's pretty poor, right? Like, his kicking efficiency was terrible.
So you're saying, okay, I get it. It's like he's kicked 2 goals and he's still
gone at 30%. So,
it's
never been his thing, right?
Exactly,
I get that. But, that's why I think that the Adelaide team looked so much better when they have those, fast, explosive, younger midfielders running through there.
We could be fucking filthy on ourselves in a few weeks' time because he's the kind of guy that if he stays in that role, he'd be a top 6 forward.
Yeah. I still will fall back on the fact that it's not disaster if you miss him this week and he clearly just has that role in the midfield and you jump on the week after, in round 15, after his bye. If he's going to be a midfielder, he'll still be cheap then, and at least you'll have a little bit more information, a little bit more certainty, and he's going to come off your bye, and he'll be there for that round 15 where you need those forwards. So it will potentially cost you 40, 50, 60K, which does suck, but I think when the flip side is getting around 12 premium instead, if you can maybe do both, it's more enticing, but if it's like an either-or situation, again, I'm going to go for the round 12 premium. Even if they're not quite as much value and not going to make much money, just the certainty that they're going to play these next 2-3 rounds and they're a premium or someone you're happy to have in your team after the buys, their role is safe, I lean that way. But again, similar to the Darcy Cameron, I'm very happy to be proven wrong here. I didn't think he was... Obviously, he went nuts last round. Yeah. The conditions suited him as well, very much so. Kicked 2 goals. So I don't expect to see again what he did last week. I'd be very... I mean, then again, he does have West Coast.
Could be a juicy sugar hit if he's in the midfield.
It's a tough one. I like it more than a Darcy Cameron because he's cheap and because he's guaranteed to make a lot of cash, or at least some cash. So it's a tough one. If you can make money on it as part of your cash grab to then get an upgrade, I think it's a great move. If it's the only upgrade you're getting, I like it less because you're missing him next week when you're probably going to need more players. This round, you're looking for ceiling type players that are actually going to count towards your best 18 because we've got so many players playing the round.
Talk about your boy Nat Fyfe real quick.
Nat Fyfe, I think it's a play. I also probably think it's probably a better play next week to have a look at it again this week, but I will just sort of float out there that he is a guy that round 12 by forward could help you in round 15 when we're lacking a lot of those forward players, and he is someone that, obviously, he's Nat Fyfe, he's a 2-time Brownlow medalist, and he's 450k, so if he's playing more in the midfield and less of that forward role, I think he has the potential to sort of be that guy that averages 75, 80, and at 450k, that's someone who you can make a fair bit of money on once his price starts moving in that direction. But it's not quite 80, yet. Yes, I think I probably prefer a little bit more next week. But if it makes you money and you can use that cash to get an upgrade on the other end, I don't hate it.
Yeah. Sheldrick's actually started right.
15 after we
points,
said that we can't go there, and
Windhager, 25 points.
Where's my boy Errol?
7 minutes to go.
Ooh, 13. Okay.
Holmesy will be happy. I think Crouchy started all right.
All right, let's talk about some...
Actually, I wanted to, just before, I want to throw a name left field to you.
Okay, hit me.
Judson Clark, 285k.
I did have a look at Juddy Clark as a Richmond guy.
So, break-even's
30-something, right?
Yeah, 31. And do we think...
Has he shed the vest?
Well, this is the question. I like to think with what he did last week, I think he kicked an important goal in there as well.
2 goals, yeah.
Does that...
I like him. I think he's a good player.
And so surely the coaching staff repay the faith and he gets a few weeks and... Is it one you can wait one more week on? Like he's 285k.
Maybe 1 week. He's got around 15 bye.
Yeah.
So again, it's like he's a forward. You'd kind of would rather him be there. So I don't think he's like a high upside player enough or like a guaranteed cash grab enough to risk that.
Yeah.
So I did have a look at him. And again, if you look, so last week, 60 points on 72% game time. The 3 weeks prior, 17%, 30%, 26% game time.
Scores well in those
points. Like his points per minute is decent, yeah. But he's played 3 games in a row as a sub, so
yeah.
I just don't know if I can trust it yet, especially with that round 15 bye.
See what he's looking like off his bye. Might be pretty excellent.
No, good name. I did have a little look at our boy Juddy Clark, who
I bring some good things to the pod, mate.
Yeah, mate. Yeah, you're not just here for your good looks.
I'm definitely not here for me good looks.
Let's move on to this next
what do we got,
segment here. Let's go.
Big boys.
The big boys. I tweeted this out before, so it hasn't changed. Although I did fuck up the tweet, and
You didn't leave English out again this week.
No, I did. I left Brayshaw out this week, and instead
did you?
I put his teammate Sarong in there, but no,
I might have to take over the big boys soon, Mish.
you might have to. Although we did get merit last week, mate. So
yeah, well done. I hope you had Windhager in your big boys, mate.
Is he going off?
He's got it right. 25.
Number 1, I've got Tim Taranto at Freo on Saturday, 7:25. Apparently, it's been quite wet over in Perth last couple of days, and it's supposed to be raining over this weekend. And Tim Taranto does love a bit of wet weather footy.
Bit of moistness for Tim. We like it.
So he is my number 1. Highest averaging player in the game, and Freo actually give up a fair amount of points. Freo was one of the teams that Errol Goulden went 150 plus against a few weeks ago. They haven't given up much points in the last few games, but if you actually dig a little deeper, the teams that have versed them have been, I think, more the issue. Like
shit kickers.
Geelong.
Oh, no, good teams. Okay.
Like good teams, but like teams that don't get fantasy scores. So I'm okay with that. I think it's a positive matchup for Tim Taranto, and as the number 1 player, I back him in at number 1. Number 2, Tim English.
He's back on the list. I love how he just said "fuck you" because you left him off the list last week and went what 158.
That was a big blunder by me. I mean, yeah.
Well,
pretty poor effort. But
I know he would have been on your list, but
he wouldn't have been in my top 4.
Yeah, the matchup with Geelong. But yeah, good to see him back on the list, mate. He'll be happy with that.
Yeah, so number 2 against Port Adelaide, second highest averaging player, positive matchup. So my plan is just to stick with the Tims this week and go English into Taranto.
Okay.
Pretty vanilla, but... And I want to get your take on this.
Yeah, right.
Going a VC, like a... For lack of a better term, like a spicy VC.
So, like, an aggressive.
Like going a Goulden, or going a Jake Lloyd or something like that in a round like this. Like, what are your thoughts? I feel like maybe it's the Mills that scarred me last year when he came out and scored that 54 or whatever it was.
I think you're straight about it. Like, if you do all your research and you, based on what you've done in your research, you think these will be the 2 top players of the week, and you can VC and see them, I think you just do that.
My thinking is like, let other people make mistakes by going with the
like real spicy
ones. Yeah, they might hit every now and again, but over the season, I feel like it'll average out to be in your favour.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm a bit soft, as you know, and I like to sleep well at night. And having a VC score locked away is helpful. But I mean, to be fair, last week we were very happy not to have a VC score.
True, yeah. Sometimes luck can get you there. But number 3, I do have Andrew Brayshaw, not his teammate Caleb Sarong, as that original tweet said. But Andrew Brayshaw, number 3. Number 4, I have Rory Laird bouncing back.
Bounce back.
I heard this is something that stuck with me for a little while. The great man, Selby from Rare's Magic. I think he had a great call a couple of times last year. Players, after getting tagged, for some reason, seem to bounce back in a big way. Like you go from...
pride's dinted.
Yeah, well, their pride's dinted. It's like you just get this freedom. I'd imagine, like, after being clamped, you get all of a sudden you get all this space. You can run. You call for the ball a bit more.
I can't say I know, mate. I certainly never got tagged.
Really? That surprises me, mate.
You never saw me play footy.
But I don't know. I feel like there's something to that, and obviously he's got West Coast. I've also got his teammate right behind him, Jordan Dawson. Found it very hard to split those two, but I just still think that Rory Laird's probably a better fantasy player than Dawson at this point, but it wouldn't shock me if Dawson goes big. Josh Dunkley makes his appearance again. I come up against Hawthorn this round, Saturday, 1:45, so you can easily VC that. And then at 7 is where I have the man that I traded out a couple of weeks ago, Errol Goulden. I know a lot of people are VCing him tonight because of that Saints matchup, but...
He's not scoring well, mate. You'd be popping a chub over there. He's only got 12 points.
Fingers crossed.
12
Touch
points
wood.
with 2 minutes to go, so...
And
the thing with Goulden as well, I'm digressing a little bit here, is even if he continued to go on to score hundreds, which would be fine as a top 6 sort of forward, he was priced at like 115. So there was always a feeling that you could get him cheaper later.
As long as he doesn't go 115, like if he, which is I feel like
would be
fair
crazy.
ask,
Yeah,
you know, like
what's Taranto going at the moment?
123, but
But I mean, like he's not in that realm, is he?
I don't know if he's going to get there, but so he's at number 7. Tom Green, I've got number 8, and Rowan Marshall number 9. I actually love a lot of these options.
Yeah, Roman's scoring well.
So I think those top 9 I really like, and at number 10 I have Zach Merritt, who has been the number 1 big boy for the last 3 weeks, I think, or right up the top there.
Why is he back so far?
And he's back just down because the matchups, the positive matchups, they're over now. So try not to fall in love with.
Don't tell me that.
Try not to fall in love with the run that we've seen in his form, because we did highlight that before the fact. And so now versus Carlton, I think they've also brought in an Ed Kerner who could potentially tag him. So I just think that there's much better options and a lot of other positive matchups that you could go for this week other than a Zach Merritt, despite his good form recently.
Fair call, mate. Fair call. Should we look at some spicy takes?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it.
All right,
We'll
spicy takes.
We'll get maracas one time.
Yeah, we will. Well, you just show me. What'd you say Errol Goulden was on? And what time?
I don't know if he's getting tagged because we're quite obviously not watching the game currently.
Yeah.
He's on like 12 or something, pretty close to quarter time.
Okay, so my spicy take is Errol Goulden gets tagged to a sub 80 score tonight and ruins everyone's VC. Very negative take for me and maybe wishful thinking as a non-owner. But hey, cop it, guys. That's my spicy take this week.
He's up to 18, so people will be cheering.
Shit. Okay, but I'll sub 80 score tonight, and obviously people aren't going to take that as a VC option. So that's my spicy take with the positive Saints matchup, which everyone has been eyeing off as a big one for him.
I think it's not too bad. I hope it goes wrong, but yeah.
Yeah.
Now with my spicy take, I've got a little bit of mail in, and I don't actually think a Gold Coast Sun or Geelong player will go over 80 this week.
Oh, not one.
There's not one player.
Not one. Not even the boys averaging 100 plus.
No, I don't think Stewart's getting there this week. I don't think anyone's going over 80 from those two teams. So a little bit of mail in, but heard it here first. Those are my thoughts for this week, spicy take wise.
You're an idiot.
What do you mean?
No, good spicy take, mate. Good spicy take.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Good gear. All right, let's go over to the questions that we've got coming in here, and then we're going to get out of here and watch some footy.
Let's do it.
But let's roll through some questions.
What do you got for me? Hit me with one.
Okay, thoughts on Fifey. We shared our thoughts on Fifey. Is it time, Luke, for Will Day to go?
Not right now. So round 14 bye, am I right? I'm getting better at this bye thing. Yep. Look, I think that most teams will have other priorities. So if we have a look at him here, remembering that he got tagged last week, his break-even's 104. Is he a chance of getting that? Yes. If he doesn't get tagged, I think he is. Do teams have other guys that have high break-evens that are sort of in a similar boat? Sheasel, Zeeble, these kind of guys? Yes. So I don't think that I'd be trading him this week, but I think that he's definitely a guy that come luxury season, he could be the first in the firing line. That's kind of my summary.
I think he's someone that he's probably not going to be a top 6 defender, but I will say, though, that the last, 2 of the last 3 games, he's been tagged. So he was tagged against Port Adelaide. I don't know why, but he was. He was tagged against West Coast. Yep. Again, maybe a little bit more understanding as a team that's more of an underdog, and they did get pumped by 100 points. And in between that, he's got a ton against St Kilda. So I still think that he is a guy that can average in the mid-90s. And I think, like you said, 104 break even. It would not shock me at all if he hits that this week. I don't think Brisbane is going to tag him. I don't think they've been running a tag. So no. I think that he is a guy that is fine to hold.
It's definitely a luxury kind of thing, isn't it?
Yeah. So I think that compared to these other guys, we haven't seen a role change or anything from him. No. He moved to halfback last week, but I think that was just to break the tag. I expect him to be back there again in the midfield. So I think it's not panic stations for Will Day. All right, William here is going to... What's he doing? So he's going Greenwood to Johnson. I think that's the Freo Johnson. Chincotta to Briggs. Interesting, but unsure of third trade. Do I go Drury to another sub 300k Rook or Sheasel to a round 12 primo defender?
Well, Chincotta to Briggs, so I'm guessing in that... Would you have already had 2 rucks there?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, he hasn't told us. He says he's doing that, so I guess he's set on it. So
we'll just talk about the last one.
So would you go Sheasel to a round 12 defender or a Drury
sub
to
200k?
A 300k? Sub 300k. Yeah.
I think I'd do the Sheasel to the defender before I do the other one.
I think I would too.
Who's the sub 200 that you really can lock in?
Well, there's no one sub 200, but I think there might be a few sub 300s.
I'd be trading any player who's sub 200. Absolutely. So I'd go the other of those two.
I think I would too, and obviously too late I'd go Sinclair, but if not, I would probably go a Hayden Young might be a good shout, or a Luke Ryan, probably your options there, obviously, with Lloyd and Sinclair already playing. And I don't think that's too bad of an option if it fixes up your round 15 bye. Geek Dude 18 asks, he wants Brayshaw, but he can only get him if he trades away Day or Sheasel. Who should he choose?
I'm all right to trade Sheasel. I know you said you weren't, but I think if it fits,
I don't think it's the worst thing.
Yeah, okay. So I think if it fits in with your team structure, I'm all right to get off Sheasel because and don't get me wrong as well. He could come out and pump a couple of hundreds, and I look like an absolute idiot. There's every chance, but he could also do a 60 and an 80 or a couple of 60s, and then you lose 70k on him. So it's a good opportunity to cash in. Would we like to cash in right before his buy? Of course, that's like the ideal situation. But if you feel like you can save yourself 70k. That he might drop, and you can get the guy that you want to get. Like,
it's not a bad play. Like,
Yeah.
it's not a bad play. Like, obviously, Sheasel plays 2 out of the next 3 games.
Yeah.
Brayshaw plays 3 out of the next 3 games, and he's definitely going to be more in terms of like top of his line.
Yeah. If you have Zeeble and Sheasel, I'm trading Zeeble first.
I am too.
Higher break even, and they've been doing a similar thing points wise in the last little bit.
I agree. But I think it's okay, and I'd probably trade Sheasel ahead of Will Day, in my opinion. His scoring is more volatile, and his role is a bit less certain moving forward.
Yep, agreed.
As well. One more question here, Luke from
Luke, good name.
from Lachlan to you, Luke.
Oh, I thought it was a Luke asking him. Sorry,
No, Lachlan here.
Lachlan's a good name too.
He's heavy on the round 15 buy, so thoughts on using this week to fix up Angwin, Drury, and Artie Jones to Shaggy, Johnson, and Marich. Risky, I know, but I'm buggered for round 15.
Yeah, it's all fix-ups there. How do you feel about those trades where you don't get the upgrade?
Well, first of all, I just don't know if Shaggy, Shaggy, Marich, and Johnson, like, are they going to be there anyway?
You could end up in the same position.
Like, are they going to be there anyway?
And that would just be absolute heartbreak, wouldn't it, if you did that?
Yeah, so I don't know if that actually fixes anything up. Like, if you're trading out an Angwin, I think that's fine, going down to someone, but I'd still try to be getting an upgrade. But maybe it's someone like your Zeebles or your Sheasels that are probably more the ones that you need to trade out.
Yeah.
Because then you can get to someone who's a premium, who's going to be there.
Yeah, you might have to get creative in that situation. And hopefully you've got a mid-ish price or like a fattened rookie that if you do that creative Zeeble or Sheasel down trade that you could then go up. I think there's a few options this week because you've got those guys and you've got the Keys and the Fifes and these guys that you can get a little bit more creative than just going sideways with rookies.
Like, you're making nearly 60k going Zeeble down to a Hayden Young. Like, that's not nothing. Like, that's a decent. And if you do that combined with something else, like, that might be enough to get an upgrade.
Yeah.
At least maybe to someone who's a little bit of a cheaper primo.
Yeah, really spin the magnets around and see what you can do.
But yeah, I don't know, Lachlan, if that actually does anything to help your round 15 buy in that situation. It could, but I wouldn't bank on it if that makes any sense. So that might do it for us today, Luke.
No more questions?
We'll call it there, and we'll let the people, do their thing, get their captains going, and we're going to go watch some footy.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry again that we couldn't be live, guys.
Yeah.
That's on me. But hopefully you guys still enjoy listening.
Luke, mate, focus your life on fantasy footy.
Yeah,
Don't,
It's shit house from here.
How many times do I have to tell you? But again, thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure if you're listening along on YouTube, you give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. And if you are enjoying, also feel free to go and give us a 5-star rating and review. And we'll see you next week for the round 13 review. Until then, catches.